Welcome back, everybody, to Birds of a Feather. This is your daily Baltimore sports podcast. My name is Nathan Stroud, and today we're going to be going over the Orioles and Mets game one of this three-game series, where unfortunately the Orioles lose this game 7-6 in extra innings to the Mets in the series opener of this three-game series. Very heartbreaking game. Once again, I've had to say that a ton of times this year, countless times. Can't even count them on five of my hands if I had five hands. Can't count how many heartbreaking losses this Orioles team has suffered. But this one is definitely up there. This one is definitely up there with one of the most heartbreaking losses of the season so far. When you take into account the situation that the Orioles are in, when you take into account the situation that they're in with having only 6 games, including tonight, going into All-Star break, and the Orioles having to go on a good stretch going into All-Star break to even really consider taking the rest of the season seriously, going into the trade deadline with some sort of a plan of either to buy, stand still, or sell. Obviously, most likely the Orioles, especially after tonight, are going to be selling at the deadline, where they needed to get these wins, and especially to get this win tonight. When you look at the fact that they were winning 6-2, going into the 8th inning, winning this game 6-2, and blowing a 4-run lead, and then losing the game in extra innings, and then still not having a walk-off win, and still being the only team in Major League Baseball to not have a walk-off win yet this year, which is absolutely ridiculous and embarrassing, especially when you look at the order of the people that were up tonight for the Orioles that could have potentially, tied or even won the game in the bottom of the 10th inning. It's just disappointing. It's just heartbreaking. But at the end of the day, look, us Orioles fans, man, we're tough. This team can't hurt us anymore this year. We've gone through enough stuff this year to not really be phased or affected by any of these games. And obviously, it's heartbreaking. But at the end of the day, we've seen this multiple times before with the Orioles. They just proved who they are. They're a team that chokes. They're a team that can't find a way to win no matter how good it looks for them. And they're a team that, if something can go wrong, it will go wrong regarding to the 2025 Baltimore Orioles. And again, this season has been an absolute train wreck for the most part of it. Obviously, there's been some highs, but there's been a lot of lows. And this Orioles team is coming off of a sweep of the Atlanta Braves. They've won 3 straight going into the series. You're thinking, okay, in these final 6 games, if they can go 4-2 minimum, or maybe 5-1 over these next 6 games going into All-Star break, then you really, see yourself as a team that could potentially not necessarily have to sell at the deadline, and maybe, try and push and go for a playoff push to make the playoffs, which obviously after tonight, the confidence of that happening went down a ton. It's not necessarily at 0 yet. I'm not even going to say it's at 0 until I see how they finish off these last 5 games, because who knows, they could go on a 5-game winning streak, and then everything I'm saying right now just doesn't mean anything. But for the way that this game went for the Orioles, where they had the lead the entire game and they didn't lose the lead up until the 10th inning, and then they ended up losing, these are the types of games where the Orioles should win every single time. The Orioles went up early in this game, 1-0. And then they went up 2-0, and then eventually, all of a sudden, this game went into the Orioles' favor. And the Orioles were up in this game 6-2 going into the 8th inning due to home run by Jackson Holliday, RBI driven in by Jackson Holliday, some very clutch hits from Ramon Laureano and Ryan O'Hearn. And that was the scoring for the Orioles, and they were up 6-2 going into the 8th inning. Things were looking great for them. Brian Baker then all of a sudden gives up the runs. The Mets all of a sudden tie the game 6-6. This game goes into extras, and the Orioles lose this game 7-6. Tony Mansolino with some very questionable decisions, like intentionally walking Jeff McNeil instead of intentionally walking Juan Soto. That was definitely a decision to make. Juan Soto has been one of the best, has been literally arguably the hottest player in baseball over the past month, and obviously he's one of the best players in the league. And we don't intentionally walk him, and we let him drive in the eventual game-winning run of this game. And it's just really frustrating because this loss was so avoidable, and the Orioles, of course the Orioles, they blow it. They blow this game in a very heartbreaking fashion once again. I mean, we've seen this a ton of times this year. I mean, you look back to the Rangers game where they blew the lead late. You look back to the Nationals game where they blew the lead late. I mean, you look at all the horrendous, 15-plus run differential losses that the Orioles have suffered this year. This is just another one in the book for the Orioles, but this one especially hurts because, again, of the position that they're in right now with the standings, with how much, how winnable these games need to be, and also with how important these games are. And I think the Orioles as a team understand how important these games are. You could really see them fighting early on in this game to, eventually go up 6-2 in this game. But, they completely collapsed late and end up losing the game and just, again, are still without a walk-off win this season when they had the ability to do that with just one swing in the bottom of the 10th inning, and they just couldn't do it. And you had the guys up that you wanted to have up. You had Ryan O'Hearn up. You had Gunnar Henderson up. You had Jordan Westburg up. And none of those guys could get it done for you. None of them could even move the runner over for you. So it was just really embarrassing how this Orioles, team lost this game. So let's just go over the game. Going over this Mets and Orioles game, obviously the Orioles lose this game 7-6 in extras. They lost in the 10th inning. Juan Soto hit the go-ahead run in extras for them to eventually go up 7-6, and then the Orioles lose this game. The record sits at 40-50 through their first 90 games of the season, and they suffer their 50th loss of the season just after winning their 40th game 2 days ago against Atlanta in that sweep. But going over this game, the offense in this game, they did fine. Overall, the offense did fine in this game. The 6 runs, that was winnable. The pitching is really where this game became a problem due to the pitching late in this game, especially in the 8th inning. I'm pointing more towards Brian Baker. But the offense in this game did fine. 9 total hits in this game, got walked twice. 6 runs scored off those 9 hits. Not anything horrible. A home run hit by Jackson Holliday. Going over the offense in general, 4 for 10 with runners in scoring position. Obviously not bad. 5 guys left on base. But Jackson Holliday leading off this game. Once again, he continues to be on a tear this season. He's been absolutely amazing for the Orioles here recently, and this season he's really had a breakout year. In this game, he goes 2 for 4, 2 runs scored, a solo home run in the 7th inning, and he also had 2 RBIs total in this game. Brought in 2 runs for the Orioles, continues to be a vital point of this Orioles offense, and he continues to be on a tear going back to last game against Atlanta. Jordan Westburg goes 2 for 5 with a run scored. Gunnar Henderson goes 1 for 5 with a run scored. Ryan O'Hearn goes 1 for 4 with a RBI double. That happened in the 6th inning, that happened in this. That happened in the 6th inning where the Orioles really blew this game open a little bit, where they went up by 4 runs. That Ryan O'Hearn 2 RBI double was clutch for them, and then Ramon Laureano got a 2 RBI single in the 6th inning. That also was very clutch for the Orioles. Those were how the runs got scored for the Orioles were because of Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano. Obviously, probably the 2 best overall hitters for the Orioles this season were those 2 guys, and they drove in 4 of the 6 runs for the Orioles today. Very clutch runs in that game. Obviously, the Orioles got the lead and kind of ran with it. But Ramon Laureano continues to do great this year. 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs in this game. Colton Cowser gets a multi-hit game. He goes 2 for 4. Tyler O'Neill continues to just be absolutely horrible for this Orioles team, and he continues just to swing and miss and strike out at everything that comes at him. He goes 0 for 3 in this game with 2 strikeouts. Cedric Mullins goes 0 for 3 with a run scored and a walk. Jacob Stallings goes 0 for 3, and then we also brought in Austin Jackson, who is the 6th catcher that the Orioles have used this season, which is actually the most that the Orioles have ever had to use in a season before, which is absolutely insane. It just goes back again to the curse that this Orioles team has had this year with all the injuries that's happened. But going over to the pitching, Brandon Young was the starter in this game, and he did great. I'm not going to lie, he had a great game overall. He only gave up 2 runs in 5.1 innings. He was great, especially early on in those first 4 innings. He was untouchable. Brandon Young also had an immaculate inning. Yes, I'll say that one more time. Brandon Young, the pitcher who was pitching in AAA Norfolk for a long time, who we had to call up because of the Eflin and Povich injuries. Brandon Young pitched a immaculate inning for the Baltimore Orioles in the 3rd inning of this game. This was actually the first immaculate inning the first immaculate inning that an Orioles pitcher has pitched since 2018 with Kevin Gossman. So it's been what? It's been a long time. Been a very long time since the Orioles have had a immaculate inning. Obviously, it's very rare to have that in general. You don't really see immaculate innings too often around the league. And Brandon Young, of all people, was able to get one for the Orioles today, which is really exciting. And overall, he had a great game. 5.1 innings pitched, gave up 5 hits, 0 walks, 2 earned runs, and had 6 strikeouts in the process. And the 2 earned runs that he gave up were off of Ronnie Mauricio, and he had a solo home run, and then he also gave up another run as well. So again, Brandon Young, not a horrible start. His best start of the season by far. 5.1 innings, only gave up 2 runs, only gave up 5 hits, and had 6 strikeouts in the process. Not bad at all from him. This game does not go on Brandon Young at all. This game, to be honest with you, goes completely on Brian Baker and the absolute choke job that he had in this game. Gregory Soto goes in, he does good. Anthony Dominguez, he does good. And then Brian Baker, who's been one of the best Orioles relievers all season. As a setup guy, he's been spectacular. He's been great all year for the Orioles. He comes in the 8th inning, trying to set up Felix Bautista for the eventual, not save, but, the eventual just closing out the game. Brian Baker comes into this game. Doesn't get an out in this game, by the way. Doesn't get a single out. Pitches 15 pitches. Gives up 4 hits and 4 runs and 2 home runs in that 8th inning. And all of a sudden, this game is tied 6-6 after leading 6-2. He gave up a 2-run homer to Francisco Lindor and a 2-run homer to Pete Alonso. Obviously, 2 of the best and most important hitters for the New York Mets. Obviously, you look at that 1 through 4 with Nimmo, Lindor, Soto, and Alonso. They all contributed in that inning. Nimmo got on for Lindor. Lindor brought him and Nimmo home, and then Soto got on for Alonso, and then Alonso brought them both home. So again, Brian Baker, an absolute choke job. Didn't even get a single out. Gave up 4 runs and 2 home runs, and also 4 hits as well. An absolute disaster class by Brian Baker, and it's someone that you really did trust a lot this season. And to see them go out there and do that is it's just heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking again to see that. Andrew Kittredge, goes in inning, doesn't give up a run. Felix Bautista in the 9th inning, sends this game, gives the Orioles a chance to win at the bottom of the 9th. He does good. 1 inning, gives up a walk and 3 strikeouts. It wasn't very pretty, but he does get the job done and does strike out 3 batters in that inning. And then Yennier Cano, who does get the loss on this season. He's 1-5 in registered wins and losses this year, which is not great. Yennier Cano's been pretty bad this year, but again, you can't necessarily fully blame this game on him. He gave up a run that wasn't earned. Obviously, he was the inherited runner at second. He gave up 2 hits as well and a walk. So it got pretty sticky in the bottom of the 10th inning, or in the top of the 10th inning for the Orioles with Yennier Cano. But, they were able to get out of it with only giving up 1 run. And obviously, when you're in extra innings and you only give up one run, it's actually kind of a blessing because, it gives you the opportunity to win it with a, single swing of the bat with a home run, or obviously eventually tying the game with the runner at second. But again, Brian Baker completely blows this game for the Orioles. The Orioles were winning this game 6-2 going into the 8th inning. Not the 6th inning, not the 7th inning, not the 5th inning. The Orioles were winning this game 6-2 going into the 8th inning. And they blow it. And they blow this game. Brian Baker gives up the 4 runs that eventually tied the game for the Mets, and then the Orioles lost the game in extras because they're not clutch, and they can't win a close game, and they cannot win a game in extras, and they cannot walk off a game at home in front of their very packed crowd. It was a very, very packed crowd in Baltimore tonight. Over 35,000 people attended this game. They were giving out Hawaiian shirts. It was a crazy, crazy, crazy atmosphere. And they lost in front of their fans when they had that big of a lead. And again, it's just heartbreaking to see the way that this Orioles season has gone. With the way that the Orioles were up in this game, you would really have hoped that they would have taken this game with kind of ease. They were 6 outs away from winning this game. And all of a sudden they lose this game in extras. And it's just kind of, it confuses you and you just don't really understand what's happening. And I mean, you can point to a bunch of different things. Obviously, you can point to the health of the pitchers and also having not having your all your batters in all season. Again, they're pretty healthy right now, but besides Adley and Gary Sanchez and Ryan Mountcastle, but they weren't necessarily all contributing a ton. Obviously, Gary Sanchez was like the Orioles' best hitter before he went down. And speaking of Gary Sanchez, he is actually going to be out for the next 8 to 10 weeks. So we're not going to have Gary Sanchez for quite a while. So probably not going to see him arguably for the rest of the season in meaningful baseball. So that sucks. Reminds me a lot of the Ramon Urias injury last year, where he was like the Orioles' most hottest hitter. They were starting to kind of win some games, and then he went down with an injury. He was out for like a month. Kind of the same thing here with Gary Sanchez, except the injury to Ramon was not necessarily nearly as serious. But again, every single time something good happens for the Orioles, it also gets matched with something bad, and then just stuff like this happens where the Orioles lose another heartbreaking game this season, and it's nothing new at all. But again, it sucks, and it sucks to see that the way that this season has gone. Obviously, we've talked a lot about it. We're going to discuss it every single day because it's very relevant to the conversation of why the Orioles are in this position. But if we want to go over and look at the game tomorrow in Game 2 of the series, obviously if the Orioles win this game, you force a rubber match Game 3 on Thursday. But if the Orioles lose this game, then they lose the series no matter what. And they have to avoid trying to get swept on Wednesday or on Thursday. So we got Mets-Orioles tomorrow, obviously in Baltimore. It's going to be David Peterson versus Tomoyuki Sugano. It's going to be a heavyweight matchup. One of the best Orioles pitchers against one of the best Mets pitchers. Obviously a heavyweight matchup. It's going to be very fun. It's also going to be on prime time ESPN at 6 o'clock p.m. So that's going to be very fun to watch. We'll see what happens. And hopefully the Orioles can salvage this series tomorrow. But thank you guys so much for tuning into and listening to this episode of Birds of a Feather. If you like this content, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and like the video as well, and make sure to follow up on Spotify. And if you want to, hear more updates or hear me or see me live tweet games on X, or to see updates on Instagram as well, make sure to click the link in the bio of whatever platform you're listening on. Make sure to follow the X. Make sure to follow the Instagram. I post updates on both. Make sure to give those a follow if you like this content. I appreciate all the support that you guys have given me. Episode 89, episode 90 is tomorrow. Cannot believe that we have made it this far in this show. But again, I'm having a ton of fun doing this. Ravens training camp does start next week, so that's, football season's really going to be getting ramped up next week. And then obviously in the meantime, we're discussing every single Orioles game. It's been disappointing. It's been heartbreaking. It's been an absolute catastrophe so far this year. But again, this is our team. This is the team that we love. And at the end of the day, things happen. And at the end of the day, you just got to sit back, watch, and hope for the best with this Orioles team. So hopefully they can go out there tomorrow and salvage the series. Obviously, it was a heartbreaking game today. But what's new? What's new for the Orioles? So I'll see you guys tomorrow. You have a great sales night. I'll have an episode up sometime tomorrow night talking about Game 2 of this series. And I'll see y'all later. Go O's, go Ravens, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace out.